This is not prep the way I used to do for D&D, which was pages and pages of writing and stat blocks and everything like that. But personally, this is my preferred way of prepping. Greetings, mortals. I am become Prep, constructor of worlds. Also known as Harrison Tarr. Today, I come to you with 4 steps that I use to prep my scores for Blades in the Dark. Now, I know this might be a controversial thing to say, even though I haven't even really started the video yet, because some are of the opinion that you're not supposed to prep scores in Blades in the Dark, and that's not allowed. First of all, don't tell me how to have fun. Second of all, you're kind of right. You're not supposed to prep Blades in the Dark, and I don't prep Blades in the Dark the same way that I have prepped D&D for many years now. But I find that if I don't do some preparation and just rely all on improvisation at the table, supplemented by random tables and things like that, it's just not as good. I like having time to kind of stew on things and have creative ideas develop over the course of a week or 2 between sessions, rather than just doing everything on the fly, because when I'm doing everything on the fly, I always make mistakes and contradict myself and things like that. So, how I prep a score in Blades in the Dark. The first step is generating ideas. There are a lot of great ways to generate score ideas in Blades in the Dark. My personal favorite is plucking something out of one of your character's backstories and turning that into a score, following an aspect of their backstory or a character that was included or an untied loose end. Make that into a score, which helps immensely with, player involvement and investment. What's the word I'm looking for? Immersion? Immersion and investment are both good. You can also draw on events that have happened in-game if you've already started your campaign on generating ideas for scores, right? Maybe you want to rob another place that belongs to this one guy that you hate. Or maybe a more powerful gang comes calling because you haven't been paying your tithe, and they demand that you do this job for them in order to pay them back and reset that clock. And the final way that you can generate a score, or at least the idea for a score in Blades in the Dark, is use the resources that are included in the book. At the end of each of the crew descriptions, they give a big list of things that could be potential targets for scores. Or in the back of the book, there's a score generating set of tables that are very useful. I find the need to build on the results that those roles give me, but they are a great starting point for ideas for scores. And I'm a big fan of generating multiple potential scores and then presenting them to your players as options. Oh, the easiest way to generate scores is to let your players do it for you. Just listen to the things that they might be interested in, or ask them, hey, what's a score you guys would be interested in pulling? Like in my first campaign of Blades in the Dark, we didn't actually get to it, but they wanted to heist a ghost train. Right? So obviously I'm gonna do that at some point. We didn't get to it yet, but they'll give the ideas to you. And why would you not want to do Ghost Train? But like I said, I recommend generating multiple options, including ideas that the players give you, and presenting those to the players so that they have choices to make for what their next score is going to be. And I like to make it seem a little bit exclusive, so some of the options are a one-time offer. If you want to go to the Deathlands to retrieve this artifact, then you have to do that now, otherwise some other crew is going to do it. That helps with immersion in this idea that nothing is left unclaimed in Duskwall, and you have to fight for every victory that you get. Every piece of turf, every resource, every ally, you have to win that from somebody else. Step 2, and this has a lot to do with presenting those multiple options to the players, is where you time the score selection. Personally, I like to present my players with those ideas for a score at the end of a session, and then get some ideas together about what the score they want to do is, and then maybe even some more details beyond that. We might even get to the engagement roll and then end the session right there. That's a great way to set yourself up to have actual time to prep the score while also getting your players invested and, hype about this next score that they're about to do. And then I like doing the engagement roll because then you can come up with the detail for the beginning scene, the opening scenario of this score. And that's actually the first step. That's actually the first point in the next step. Step 3, which is to develop details and challenges. This is the closest thing to actual prep that I will be talking about in this video. Like I said, I prefer to have that engagement roll done at the end of the session, and then over the next week or however long I have, I'm able to generate these ideas, and that engagement roll tells me whether the crew is starting in a controlled, risky, or desperate position. And based on that helps me determine what the opening scene is, what that engagement scenario looks like. Next, I like to develop scenes and areas. These are kind of the broad swaths of here are the things that I think would be cool to happen in the score, or just the scenarios that you're going to put in front of your players. For example, one of the scores I ran in the Blades in the Dark campaign that I just completed, they went to a manor. And in the first area of that manor, it was a masquerade ball. And then they, of course, went beyond that and went deeper into the mansion and then had different types of encounters. We started with a masquerade ball. That was like one scene or one area. And then we moved on from that. And I don't want to give any spoilers because the campaign that I am referencing is actually the campaign that is going to be made available to you very soon. It actually is already available to you if you've subscribed to us on Patreon. Thank you so much for doing that. And you can get access to that right now, or you can wait until Tuesday, October 3rd, where it will be available on Spotify. The name of the podcast is the Tabletop Sandbox Podcast, and specifically we're calling this Blades in the Dark actual play Canticle of the Crimson Wave.
Did your plan go perfectly fine?
Yep, totally, 100%. Yep,
right?
100%. No issues.
No detection.
Yeah, I saw you guys start the fight. It was a little bit late, but
it didn't catch
good.
as quickly as we thought it would, but there was
totally
no issue. No
Is
issue.
that a gash on your arm?
Nope.
Where's your little head
Just clutching a bleeding arm. Yeah.
I lost it on the way back.
So I develop different scenes or areas that I want to play out, different events that are happening. And these are things that are going to exist whether or not the players engage with them. Some of them may be skipped. Some of them might become the main part of the score. And some of them might just be something you deal with, for one 10-minute block of one character interacting with it. I like to have different events or different scenes or areas throughout the score that I think it's likely the players will interact with or would be cool if they played out in the way that I have them in my head. I also like to develop NPCs. Generally, I don't do any. You don't need stat blocks in Blades in the Dark. I just ascribe them a tier, which would then be applied to anything that they're kind of proficient in. Then I just pick a couple of adjectives, which there's a random chart in the back of the Blades in the Dark book that will help you generate NPCs that I use for this. I come up with a name, a tier, what they're good at, any interesting things about them, and then like 3 adjectives to describe them and help me know how to roleplay them. Then, oftentimes, going into a score, I know what the likely progress clocks that I will need for that score are, right? If you're trying to sneak in somewhere undiscovered, there's usually going to be an alert clock. And then maybe once you are alerted, there's a clock until reinforcements arrive. Or there's a progress clock that represents a foe that your players might have to go up against, whether that be an NPC or a devil of some kind, or a lock on a safe that they have to complete the progress clock to unlock and gain access to. And finally, I like to prep at least one twist or complication that has not been revealed to the players. Something that they haven't foreseen. Maybe it's been hinted at, but it's not been exposed to the players already. A complication that they're not expecting, because that's just good storytelling. And finally, step 4, prepare to improvise, which seems kind of counterintuitive. You can't really prep to not prep, but it's more of a mindset shift that I have needed to do switching from D&D to Blades in the Dark and games like Blades in the Dark. You can't go into that with a rigid idea, and this is just good GMing advice, period. You can't go into a session with the idea of how it's going to go exactly. You have to take the things that the players do and the results of rolls and the interesting things that didn't connect in your head until they're staring you in the face, and be able to roll with those punches and turn the session into something that nobody was expecting it to be, if that makes sense. And this is something that can be very hard to learn. It's something that took me a long time to kind of adapt over my decade plus of game mastering. If there is an idea that you have in your head as the game master that you think is really cool, but you can tell that the events are leading to a place where you would kind of have to force it, or it doesn't really make sense to happen the way you imagined it happening, you have to be able to let that go. Do not take the player's agency. Don't tell your story. Help the players as you all tell a story together. Like I said, this is not prep the way I used to do for D&D, which was pages and pages of writing and stat blocks and everything like that. But personally, this is my preferred way of prepping. It's all about cool ideas and nothing about slogging through the mechanics of the game and coming up with a bunch of possible scenarios that probably won't even happen. I would recommend, not just for Blades in the Dark, but for any game that you're doing, only prep the bare minimum of what you need. And if you don't have that many crunchy mechanics, and it's a game like Blades in the Dark, just prep enough to organize and inspire ideas from you and from the players. Thank you for watching. I hope this helps. Leave comments and likes below, and subscribe if you haven't. That helps us out here. I'm off to do more world building, and so I bid you good night, mortals.